And stop me if you've heard this one before, but Tammy Sytch was arrested again this week. This woman spends so much time behind bars, she's going to have to start making mortgage payments on herself. WrestlingNews.co was first to report that, according to state records, WWE Hall of Famer Sunny was taken into custody on Thursday in Keansburg, New Jersey on a slew of charges including, but not limited to, DUI, driving with a suspended or revoked license, reckless driving, careless driving, likely to endanger person or property, driving without a license, failure to possess an insurance card, operating a motor vehicle during a license suspension, her second violation, and failure to install interlock/driving a car without interlock. An ignition interlock device is something that connects to a car and measures the alcohol content on the person's breath. So if someone's reading is too high, the vehicle won't start. It's funny, the only reason I even know what an interlock device is because of wrestling. I don't know if it was Scott Hall or who it was, but years ago I was covering a similar story on the podcast, and there was somebody who I think had to have an interlock device installed or they wouldn't be able to drive their car. Another fucking wrestler who can't hold their liquor and can't keep their shit straight. And I learned exactly what an ignition interlock device is. So apparently she was supposed to have one installed and did not. All of this, by the way, is separate and apart from her arrest last month for making terroristic threats and unlawful possession of a weapon when she tried to stab her boyfriend with a pair of scissors. And apparently they have the entire incident on police dash cam. Shout out to Good Mic Work, who pointed out to me that the clip from the podcast I did last month, in January, talking about her last arrest, popped up in his YouTube feed. And in that clip, I opened the segment by saying that Sunny was arrested again, or as she likes to call it, Thursday. Guess what day she was arrested this week? A month later, here we are. What day was she arrested on? Thursday. Hey, when you're right, you're right. She has a court date set for March 10th, and it sounds like she's still incarcerated at the moment, although I didn't see that confirmed. This woman is a menace to society. She should be locked up for the time being until this all gets worked out. She is a menace to society, and she is a menace to herself. But my bigger issue is that when I read about the DUI stuff, and it says in plain English right there, endangering people or property, this woman is a menace. I'm not sure what can be done at this point. She's never gonna learn until somebody gets killed. Is that what it's gonna take? Because I fear that's what it's gonna take. She may end up hurting herself, but she could also hurt somebody else who has nothing to do with this through no fault of their own. That's what I'm worried about. That one day we're going to get a TMZ story saying that Sunny ran over some kid in the street because she was drunk off her ass. I mean, at what point do we say enough is enough? Actor and former WWE writer Freddie Prinze Jr. on his Wrestling with Freddie podcast, this week is when I learned that Freddie Prinze Jr. has a podcast. He talked about his desire to start his own wrestling promotion in the next few years. This is part of what he said. Credit to WrestlingNews.co for the transcription. Wrestling has always been a passion of mine, and I've always tried to find opportunities throughout my career to try to bring wrestling to mainstream Hollywood. It has always been like running into a brick wall. The disdain that this business has for it, I get it, but I don't understand it. So a lot of times when I've even mentioned wrestlers for, hey, you need to meet wrestler X, Y, or Z for a general casting meeting because they can really act and here's some clips, I've literally gotten hit back with, yeah, but they work for WWE. And I'm like, so what? They'll quit. A TV contract is better than a WWE contract, I assure you, and SAG is better insurance than having to go in there with your own. So to go in there and just get shot down universally, time and time again, it is very, very frustrating to the point where, my dream is to have my own wrestling federation one day. That's my final retirement project. I had to change my whole perspective on it, which was I have to have enough money for 2 years of failure. I'm going to let it fail for 2 years while constantly working to build bridges, open up connections, find homes for it, to the point where it can finally start financing itself, paying the wrestlers themselves, providing insurance for the wrestlers, things like that. Things that I feel are important. If it can't, then I'll fail in that venture and I'll move on to something else. But that is what is necessary in order for me to jump into this train. I don't want to compete with WWE or AEW. I just want to have my own thing and have it on smaller channels, have it be a SAG show, so they're all Screen Actors Guild. And he talked about how he's excited for it. He's putting together his little wrestling piggy bank as we speak. And he says that I'm putting money in there for the next year and a half. And then I'm going to go in on my indie wrestling brand. And you know, that's the thing about starting a new promotion or a new football league if you're Vince McMahon. You have to be financially prepared and financially strong enough to lose money for possibly the first few years before you even start making money. You know, you hear about a lot of these social media platforms, whether it was Twitter, others, Uber, Lyft, stuff like that. They lose millions upon millions of dollars with the idea that one day they'll actually make money. But you have to have a lot of money to finance something like that. And, you know, he's talking about something on a much smaller level here. You know, he's been in Hollywood for a number of years. I don't know what his bank account looks like, but obviously he's got some money saved up. So, you know, if he wants to take his own money and lose some to try to make this thing a success, then more power to him. And it's nice to think about the idea of the wrestlers having insurance through SAG. It still is not clear to me why wrestlers are not eligible to become SAG members right now and get their insurance through them if they want to. You know, there have been countless promotions that have failed to get off the ground because they're just not successful, but I wish them luck. It would be another place for people to work. All of this, by the way, reminds me, what's Andrew Yang been up to lately? Whatever happened to Andrew Yang? I thought he was the big wrestling crusader. He was coming after Vince McMahon, remember that? He was going to take on Vince McMahon and his corrupt labor practices. Whatever happened to that?